We had a Christmas Eve service planned. My job is to make sure the building is set up and everything's ready to go. So I came to the church early that morning to make sure everything was good. And when I showed up, I could hear fire alarms going off. And I thought, well, that's kind of strange. I entered through those worship center doors, and the water was coming out of the baptistry over the stage and down the stairs. It looked like Niagara Falls when I walked in.
A fire suppression line that burst over our baptistry, and it flooded the building with about 500,000 gallons of water. The water had run for so long that it was iced over out the back of the building, so it looked like an ice skating rink. And we walked in, and you saw the water coming out of the ceiling tiles and all of the electrical panels and the light fixtures. So when we found it, it was pretty devastating.
We lost probably 80% of the building. The building is roughly 70,000 square feet, so a lot of damage.
It was pretty overwhelming, and I immediately began to think about what our people would begin to feel emotionally and how they were going to respond.
Maybe 8:30, 8:45, Pastor Cliff FaceTimed me. I looked at Beth and I said, wow, what a pastor. FaceTime you on Christmas Eve, you know? And I could just hear him saying, Brady. And he said, hey, there's busted pipe at church. It's a sprinkler head and it's blowing water everywhere. How do I turn the sprinklers off? And I said, no worries, I'll be there in 10 minutes. So I knew right the minute I opened the door that this was a big deal. This is not a small leak, you know. It was catastrophic. So I called Beth, I sent her some pictures.
When he sent me the pictures, it was just shocking and devastating.
You begin to process the emotions, and it can be an overwhelming element of despair if there's no hope that's presented. That was my goal then, is to say, yes, we're in it, but God knew it, and He's got a way through it, and that's where we have to turn our attention. I had heard of Southeast. We had church members who had relationships with them, and there really wasn't a question about who to call.
One of our members and deacons, David Whitmire, has worked for Southeast. He was the second phone call that day. He made a phone call to them, and Seth walked through the door I would say within an hour.
In a situation like this, that you've got to have the resources and the capability. Southeast being my first reaction was because of who I knew them to be.
I walked in and saw what had happened. Kyle walked through the door and he immediately hugged my neck. And he said, we've got this.
It was amazing to see the numbers that came out even on Christmas Eve. After the phone calls went out, there were trucks rolling in here all hours of that night, bringing in equipment.
You know, that really set the stage for the entire project.
Seth, who oversaw all the mitigation, he was phenomenal. From start to finish, I knew what was going on, what I could expect next.
We ensured that sense of peace with him and instilled confidence. As soon as we stepped onto the property, he knew that we were going to be able to take care of this project. It was everybody coming together and really, putting our best effort into making sure that we had this project done in a timely fashion to be able to get the members of this, community back in their church.
It was busy. We were slammed. But then seeing everybody showing up, hey, what do you need? I'm going to be there. It was that feeling that you have a work family.
After Seth did his job, Adam and Sierra reported in. Cannot say enough about those two. They made us feel like a priority. They made us feel like family, and they were going to do everything that they could do, not only to get us in as fast as possible, but to also give us exactly what we wanted and needed in the facility.
Our team was brought in just after Christmas, starting to put together the scope, the next steps, making sure that we got everything approved.
I would work with Cliff and also the designer to make sure that everything was here on time and on budget.
Making sure that our final touches were definitely leaving everything better than we found it, and just really kind of driving home all the details and made sure everyone felt when they walked back in the doors that they were at home.
Southeast ran with everything, and we were able to entrust them with that.
Even on Christmas Day and Christmas Eve, they were still working with a smile on their face when their socks were wet and it was cold outside, and ice was running out the door, was really impactful for me. And I think because of that, we were able to get the church back in months ahead of schedule and under budget.
Just the camaraderie that surrounded this project with the trade partners coming in and taking responsibility and pride in their work as they came in each and every day to get this building back to where it was.
Southeast handles everything from cleaning up the problem and fixing the problem, and also helping the homeowner get through all the pitfalls of the insurance agents. The experience and expertise is there to actually help them, and I think that helps develop a bond because they see it's not just like a TV show where someone comes in to rebuild their house and then 30 minutes later it's brand new. The empathy goes a long way on both sides.
Anytime you read a job description for Southeast, it seems that there's a heart for the customer and a heart for your employees. Well, you get to see from the top down, that heart is really there and it's very strong.
There's no other restoration company that I would recommend to anyone because I know the commitment, the work, and the integrity and the effort that Southeast took to make us whole again. Last Sunday was our first Sunday back in the worship center, and to see everybody back together meeting was the reward of that darkest moment when we walked in and there was no power and there was water everywhere. Even in our darkest moments, God hasn't forgotten us. And as we walk through the darkest days of being displaced for an entire year, to the moment that we were back, it was that fulfillment of the hope. And so to have that hope realized this past Sunday was worth every bit of everything that we had to learn as we walked through this. I pray that we never have to use Southeast Restoration again, but for anybody that needs that type of work done, there's no other company that I would ever recommend.